Hello.
Oh.
Hello. Cut it up. Cut it upside down.
Gadiga.
Yes.
Oh. Oh. Comrades. Yana. This one. Cuma phone.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
Yes, Chair, we have got the media here with us, and we've got AFP, we've got freelancers, Home Affairs, Sunday Mail, Herald, Star FM, New Zimbabwean Daily News, Newsiana, 263 Church, ZFM, ZBC, Deutsche Welle, Bloomberg, Farmers Guardian, and if there are any that I've not mentioned, I think you will indicate to us. And apart from that, we have also last chair. Chair, I think the press and our guests or visitors are ready for.
Do you also introduce our guests to members of the press?
Yes. Chair, we also have within us here an 18-year-old first-time voter. Her name is Kelly Gaston.
Then stand up so they can see. Thank you.
Yes. We also have Mr. Bruce Nyoni, who is representing PWDs.
Zimbabwe Amendment number 20 of 2013, a function which previously fell under the ambit of the Registrar General's office. The nomination court sat on 14 June 2018 from 10 o'clock in the morning and closed at 4 p.m. as fixed in Proclamation number 2 of 2018. However, processing of documents continued well into the night owing to an overwhelming response by aspiring candidates. The purpose of the nomination courts was to facilitate the nomination of prospective candidates in the upcoming harmonized elections by the electorate and to vet the candidates to ensure that they met certain criteria set by the law in order for them to participate in the upcoming harmonized elections. Nomination of candidates for election to the office of the President sat at the High Court, Mapondera Building in Court A. Nominations of National Assembly constituency candidates, party list candidates to the Senate, National Assembly and provincial courts for the non-metropolitan provinces sat at the various provincial magistrates' offices of the chief executive officers of the respective local authorities, where 23 aspiring presidential candidates were successfully nominated. These include 3 women and 1 independent. With respect to Manicaland province, for instance, we had 194 candidates who were successfully nominated for the National Assembly elections, while in Harare Metropolitan Province, the figure was 308 successful nominees. We are now in the process of collecting and collating all the statistics from our 10 provinces to facilitate the gazetting of the names of all successfully nominated candidates. Thereafter, all successfully nominated candidates will be availed with electronic copies of the final voters' roll at our expense. The Commission is aware that the voters' roll is a critical component of the electoral process and in some instances a source of electoral disputes. Be that as it may, the Commission hopes that the voters' roll that is being availed today will meet public expectations and stakeholders who have devoted their precious time and resources in complementing ZEC's efforts towards this achievement. The electronic copies of the voters' roll will be availed to candidates contesting the forthcoming harmonized elections free of charge in terms of Section 21, subsection 6 of the Electoral Act. And copies will also be availed to members of the public at the following prescribed fees. A ward voters' roll will cost $2, a constituency voters' roll will cost $10, and the national voters' roll will cost $20. A hard black and white copy of the voters' roll will cost 10 cents per page for national, 10 cents per page for polling station, ward and constituency voters' roll. So basically the hard copies will cost 10 cents per page. The final voters' roll contains a total of 5,681,604 registered voters. This figure excludes those who registered after the cutoff date of 1 June 2018 and those on the exclusion list. The exclusion list has entries which include the deceased, those with ID queries such as sharing one ID number or invalid IDs, as well as some multiple registrants and those whose data is yet to be decrypted who registered during the inspection period. And those who are on the exclusion list after having attended to corrections will appear on the 2023 voters' roll. The Commission would like to take this opportunity to appeal to all political parties and independent candidates to campaign peacefully and desist from intimidating voters so that the country has a free, fair and credible election. ZEC further advises the media to give balanced coverage to all political parties and independent candidates. In my capacity as the chairperson of the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, I would also like to thank all of our valued stakeholders from CSOs, FBOs, all of our funding partners, and I would actually like to especially thank and mention the efforts by all the ZEC Secretariat and staff who in some provinces were actually sitting in the nomination court until 3 a.m. last night. I would like to thank them and commend them for a job well done. Basically, this is the prepared speech that I had. And what I want to do now is I have invited an 18-year-old who is a first-time voter and a representative of people with disability. And I would like these two representatives of our society to be the very first Zimbabwean citizens to receive copies of the final voters' roll. The rationale being that the voters' roll is something that should be owned by the people of Zimbabwe, the ordinary people of Zimbabwe. So I have called two representatives of the ordinary people of Zimbabwe. And Mr. Slaikwana, if you would facilitate, we start with one. If you give one a microphone, we'd like them to tell us briefly something about themselves, and then I'll hand them with the first copies of the final voters' roll. Avail a microphone. We invite both of them, if one of them could stand up first. We just want to know briefly who are they, what do they do, what they are expecting to happen in their country after the elections. Thank you. Come and stand next to me. Thank you. Yes. Please just tell us who you are and how many times you voted before and what you're expecting in elections.
My name is Bruce Nyoni, representing the PWDs in Zimbabwe, the persons with disabilities. I'm also a first-time voter this year, and we are quite happy as persons with disabilities that for the first time ZEC has been asking us about our needs and wants as they were compiling their voters' roll. And it is our wish and hope as well as our trust that these disabilities that we indicated during the time of voting, they are going to use them so that we will not have hassles and we are going to be having user-friendly polling stations during the election period. So with this having been accorded the first-time opportunity as a citizen of Zimbabwe, and on behalf of everyone with disabilities there, to be the first one to receive the voters' roll, even before the president himself as well as the other candidates had received it, it's a high honor and a great privilege bestowed upon me. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nyoni. Here's a copy of the 2018 final voters' roll, and might I just say that history has been made today. You're the very first Zimbabwean to ever hold a final voters' roll in your hand. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
from the elections. An officer to lead me in answering a few questions.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is question time. Kindly state your name and your organization, media house, as you ask your question. Yes, sir. We start there and then we get 2 questions.
My name is Reggae Mashawari. I'm with AFP News Agency. Justice Chukumba, we understand that voters from were supposed to be available before the sitting of the nomination court. Why didn't you make it available area? Then the other issue is about other political parties who have been raising concerns on what they say the militarization of ZEC, deployment of the military intelligence services to intimidate voters in the rural areas. What have you done about that? Then lastly, the issue of voter education. Some observers have already noted that there is need to
perspective. I had previously indicated that to avail copies of the final voters' roll before the sitting of the nomination court. However, due to circumstances beyond our control, we found ourselves unable to actually complete the cleaning of the data which we had obtained during the inspection period. As you know, during the inspection period, people were filling in forms to change polling stations. People were filling in hard copies of forms to actually correct any errors. Those hard copies of all those corrections would actually have to be brought here to head office from all the provinces, which took a couple of days. Then the data had to be uploaded onto computers, and the data had to be decrypted. So the decryption took a substantial number of days, more than we had anticipated. And then finally, we had to run a final round of deduplication using our APHIS program, using fingerprints, because we found that some of the people who had effected corrections then actually had to re-register. So that was the reason why we were working flat out. We were working 2 12-hour shifts in order to facilitate the availability of final votes by our trained officials at those venues to actually access the provisional voters' roll. With regards to the militarization of ZEC, I do hope that we can put the issue of the militarization or alleged militarization of ZEC to bed once and for all. In the first instance, I'm not quite sure that all sections of Zimbabwe society agree on what the word militarization means. But I will repeat, I have gone on record to say we have approximately 13.8% of retired former military personnel in our secretariat as ZEC. I have said that these members of our secretariat advertised or answered advertisements, they went through interview processes, they were successfully assigned to certain duties in ZEC, and as far as we're concerned, there's no law in Zimbabwe that prevents us from actually employing anyone who we are assured is no longer a serving member. I have challenged anybody who has evidence that we have serving members of the military within our ranks to bring forward that evidence. Until such time as that evidence is availed to me, I will avail that we are not doing anything wrong. We do have former members of the military within our ranks. We intend to keep them unless and until we are told that they are still serving. The deployment of the military to intimidate people in the rural areas, again, it's a question of evidence, and I've not yet had tangible evidence brought to me to say, Chairperson, at Jerera Growth Point, there's a person whose name is so-and-so, he's deployed, he's military, he has intimidated so-and-so. If and when such concrete evidence is brought to me, there are measures that we will take and put in place. Now, the final question was to do with voter education, need for ZEC to talk about the secret vote. We agree that there's need for ZEC to conduct voter education, but if you have a look at the roadmap or our electoral calendar, you will see that we are now due to start training of all our voter educators who will go out into all our different places and disseminate this message. This is a message that traditionally we disseminate when we go towards polls. Last week we were focused on the nomination court. Now that nomination is done, as I've said, right now we're collating the statistics. We are required by law to gazette the names of all the successfully nominated candidates. We then avail them e-copies of the final voters' roll, and then we move on to training of those who will disseminate voter education messages with regards to how to vote and all that goes with the exercise of the right to vote. Welcome, Commissioner. Next round of questions.
Thank you. I hope you keep your questions to 2 or so that we give quite a number of people to ask. Yes, I recognize the gentleman.
We could stick to one question per person. It gives everybody a chance to.
Yes, just one person, please.
Okay. My name is Andrew Kunambura. I'm from the Daily News. I just wanted to find out how many people are on the exclusion list.
The people on the exclusion list are approximately 100,000. And they were excluded for various reasons, as I've already explained, such as those people whose IDs were considered invalid. As you know, the Constitution actually stipulated that we've also got deceased people. They've also been excluded. They are on the exclusion list. And then we have a very small number of people, about 16,000 or so, who unfortunately were unable to decrypt their data in time for the production of the final voters' roll. So those ones, once the data has been decrypted, will find themselves on the voters' roll. The exclusion list will tell you the reason why you've been excluded, if you are on it.
Thank you. Yes, sir, then I'll start.
Okay, my name is Nyasham Kapila. I'm a freelance journalist.
I wanted to ask how many presidential candidates which failed to register at the nomination court yesterday, and also how many the final voters roll, the hard copies, how many pages, which is costing 10 cents per copy. Thank you.
I was just confirming with the acting chief elections officer, he's more hands-on than I am. We had a total of 28 nominees submit their papers. As you know, 23 made it, which automatically means that 5 were not able to meet the requirements. You were asking about the number of pages for the final voters roll. We are yet to do a first print of the hard copy. So as of now, I'm unable to say, but I'm sure in a day or so, our secretariat will have that information on their fingertips. We only have e-copies as of today. Once we print our first hard copy, we will know how many pages.
Thank you. Yes, I recognize you, then I'll come to you, lady.
Good afternoon. My name is Valentine Maponga. Yesterday, the High Court ordered ZEC. I'm a freelance journalist. The High Court ordered ZEC to actually avail the provisional voters roll and to come out of the audit of the final voters roll. Are there any provisions for you to actually rectify the roll?
All right. The first technical point to take note of is that we as the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission are yet to be served with a copy of the High Court order that was allegedly made. I've been advised and informed that social media is advising us that there's an order made against us by the High Court, but we are yet to be served with a copy by the applicant. Therefore, I am reluctant to comment on what may or may not have happened or what the order may or may not say. I'm told that it generally gives us 5 days within which it stipulates that we ought to provide a copy of a provisional voters roll within 5 days of demand. I don't know whether that's correct, as I said. So my comments are limited for the reason that I've not been favoured with a copy of the order. If and when I am favoured with a copy of the order, we will take the issue on further advice from our lawyers. But I just want to say, the first thing is that our law doesn't actually provide for any creature called a provisional voters roll. That was an administrative nickname that we gave to the list that we had, which was subject to correction. Our law simply talks about availing a list of registered voters and then availing a final voters roll. So there is no mention of a provisional voters roll in any of the provisions of the Electoral Act. That's the first thing. The second thing is that if we have been ordered to avail a provisional voters roll, perhaps that order may have been superseded by events because we no longer have a provisional voters roll, we now have a final voters roll. So I'm not quite sure if that's what the order says, whether we'll be able to comply with it. We might have been able to comply with it last week or during the inspection period when our...
It's going to dent your credibility to deliver or to administer a free and fair vote.
My answer to that question is that absolutely not. And we did not fail to avail the provisional voters roll. We did avail a copy of the provisional voters roll even during the period when we laid it open for inspection. We availed it to members of the public. You could have accessed it through our link. You could have accessed it through our *256 hashtag code. So it is actually incorrect to say that we failed to avail a copy of the provisional voters roll. It was availed. The bone of contention was that political parties asked us to avail it in analyzable format, and we refused to do that because it was provisional. What we did is we availed a copy in read-only format. So please, let us get our facts correct. It is incorrect to say that the ZEC failed to avail a copy of the provisional voters roll. It was availed, except it was availed in a format that didn't please certain sections of society. Now, just to put things in perspective, the law actually stipulates that we provide a final voters roll in analyzable format, and you will find that that is exactly what we have done. I've already explained there's no creature named a provisional voters roll in our law. It talks about a preliminary list, which was availed. Next question, please.
My name is Sharon Tawia from New Zealand. I just wanted to find out, since the close of nomination court yesterday at 4 p.m., has ZEC received any complaints from candidates, political parties? If formal complaints have reached ZEC offices, what were the major issues?
All right. The first thing that I would like to just say is the law says the nomination court sits between the hours of 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. But technically and in practice, what that translates into is we expect papers to have been filed between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. So you will find that most of these nomination courts in most provinces were actually in those courts until 1 a.m. And I think, was it Meru, which sat up to 3 a.m. So they expect candidates or prospective nominees to actually file their papers before 4 p.m., but they sit in that courtroom and actually adjudicate on all those papers until the sun rises the following day. So we actually had 4 p.m. as the cutoff point. The complaint, and I won't go into details as to who it is, it wasn't a complaint as such, it was more of a request from one of the candidates who was not successfully nominated for the presidential ballot. The candidate had filed his papers before 4 p.m., but what he was not able to do was to provide an original copy of his birth certificate. So he has since appealed to us to say that this is the reason why he was deemed...
We're just appealing to you, Commissioner, in terms of accreditation for us as the press. Yeah, it's a bit cumbersome for us, especially when we are accredited by the Media Commission, and also we have also the privilege that you call us to the press conferences, and we have been covering the processes that have been happening.
We get written applications directed to the Acting Chief Elections Officer from anyone who wishes to be accredited, and we circulate those written letters to everyone who is on the accreditation hear whether anyone has any objection to your being accredited. And that process doesn't take more than 5 days. In those instances where it takes more than 5 days, could you perhaps write to me or make it known to me, because I actually chair the accreditation committee, and I will see what it is that we can do in order to facilitate or to fast track it. So on an individual case-by-case basis, if you know of anyone who's having difficulty or who's experiencing that red tape, I have an open door policy. A quick written letter to me will elicit a very fast response.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any questions for Commissioner Mshonga, who's here to give me moral support? I don't think so. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen of the press. And may I again say thank you to our two 18-year-olds, our ZEC ambassadors, our first-time voters.